Each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
So yeah, speaking of toxicity, you were mentioning how our guts and our stomachs and our basically our bodies, which you call the DNA skin suit technology, how it's been affected, how this technology that we are living in has been affected. I mean, when we have a human that is calibrated to its fullest potential without a bunch of injections in it, without disalignments in the skeletal and muscular structure, without belief systems that are actually keeping them prisoners of their own mind through worry and fear and shame, blame, guilt, self-judgment, judgment on others. When we have a human being that is been somehow brought up in a better way, or has been able to detox themselves of this, and that is absolutely possible. I know that you've talked about this before, and we'll talk about it again in a second, but what is the true potential of human? What is the true potential of our DNA technology skin suit? I mean, we hear of these people doing remote view, Ed Dames, the kill shot. I mean, hundreds and thousands of people are remote viewing. Hundreds and thousands of people are now animal communicators or ghost hunters. What do you see in the records of our technology that is our skin suit? What have you read? What do you see? What is our full potential?
Our full potential is at a scale so greater than we have ever become to imagine. Remote viewing is just but one tiny little sample. People have asked me for many years now, how is it that I do what I do? And my answer to them, there's a part of me in the past, a part of me in the future, a part of me in the North Pole, and a part of me in the South Pole. I have acknowledged that I'm a multidimensional, multifunctional, photonic being of light that does not have to agree to time. Toxicity is how you are disconnected from no time and allowing yourself to live in the environment where we all share the dirty energy underwear. Toxicity is the level of coercion and corruption the system of domination and control has over you even at birth through a system called ancestral karma that you incarnated or reincarnated with. Toxicity is debt. Debt that was created by other generations of other times who are not the I am presence of now. We need not take on the debt. So when people are looking for this new vein of hope, this new ray of truth, it comes inside. And for the true human potential to be understood, we must conquer our own spiritual toxicity, our own physical toxicity, our own social toxicity, and our technological toxicity. I use those words for a very specific reason. When you bring all of those into a relative balance, meaning you have enough outside and inside time, enough social time, enough all of the balanced times, and all the different levels of reality you have to express, that is how you are existing as a multifunctional, multidimensional being in this layer of timed reality. Your next layer is, how do you do that in an untimed reality? Everyone out there has had a process where they had to have 6 or 7 hours of work that needed to get done, and somehow they got it done in 2. That is how we can warp the reality around us. How people have had to get to work 20 minutes in a 40-minute drive, and they make it there with 1 minute to spare. We shape and manifest our reality at all times. That is the true human potential. When the humans get past shame, blame, and guilt, they get to a level of heart connection where they can hear truth from other voices. and have a knowingness that they are greater than those that came before them. That is the true human potential. Our skin suits have skill sets such as clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, telekinesis, aerokinesis, pyrokinesis, and 1,000 others yet to even be described. Ghosts are real. Aliens are real. Everything is real because we have manifested it in this time over millions of years of history. Things from the most ancient parts of our history, long forgotten by our race memories, are being brought back to us by these odd propagandas and appearance of UFOs, and things that make us wonder, what else is out there?
That reminds me, when you're talking about the toxicity, what the Bible says, the sins of the fathers pass to the sons. That sounds a lot like what they say in India with karma. And you were talking about spiritual debt. Would you say that all of these sayings basically speak about the same thing?
Yes, they all speak of the same thing, as how physical debt, dollars, cents, joy, love, hate, all of that stuff transits to how the body passes over and goes into its astral world before it decides to come back and live here. It transits out of the real into the other real, and it chooses to take a debt with it. A debt that it may want to fix the next lifetime in awareness or unawareness. And that is the challenge that everyone on our world is going through now. How much of your past life memories are making it from your light body into your physical incarnate body? And what do you have to do this lifetime? What disciplines do you have to practice? What martial arts do you have to understand to get yourself once again heart-centered, connected into the land that you live on, acknowledging that you have ancestors that live outside of time, that you can co-function in both worlds simultaneously? And the discipline of living a life like that is your inherent legacy. For there is where all of those psychic abilities and powers await, at an unimaginable level of power and usage. And it just requires us to detoxify our minds of the belief systems that are limiting, that create fear, to allow the ignorant, intolerant people who run our world to be told, no, you cannot do it anymore. For we are not God-fearing. We are individual, manifesting, co-creating beings of light. We do not have to fight. We do not have to go to war. We do not have to give the choices that the system tells us to choose out of adrenal gland fight or flight response.
Yeah, there is a reality beyond this reality which even cannot be spoken, felt, or even perceived by any of our senses. It's even beyond nothingness, because we can't even define what is nothing with the words. But even if you go beyond nothingness, where you can't define it.
Yes, we can. It's called void space, and I have an extended. Let's just say ideology on what void space is. There is a no place in which uncollectives become collectives and simultaneously create their own extra universal akashic record, like the footage that didn't make the film. I've gone very deep into void space, and then the void spaces between universes is where new universes are created. And there's a new universe coming online right now, and that new universe, its purpose is to take all of those that are getting basically told at the galactic level or the universal level, we're now changing some of the rules in our universe. You can no longer intentionally create universal-wide paradoxes that wipe everyone's experience out. If you do not agree to this, you must go on to the 18th universe. It is essentially a purging of beings that are here to, uncreate everything. That's their free will choice. Is Rodan there now?
Yes, he's watching over me. right now.
All right. So I have a question for him. You said Andronicus was from Andromeda, and he was stuck here, and he knows another part of the story. Does he know about the timeline fallout shelters, in which where beings can go and store their light, and it can come out and be protected at a future time?
Does Rodan know that?
Do either of them know that?
Rodan says he's aware of everything.
Because he's floating within 0 point time. Okay. So then he's already been through the timeline fallout shelters. I'm trying to put the pieces and puzzles together myself.
He's not a part of that. He doesn't exist in those planes, he's saying.
Never existed or does not exist there anymore?
He does not exist in those planes. He said he cannot be observed from the perspective that you're observing.
Okay, so he's an unentangled observer using unentangled observer technology. Now I understand.
That's correct.
Yeah. I've spoken a lot about them, the unentangled observers.
So Andronicus, however, has gone in and out of that space. He's gone in and then he's come out, similar to Rodan, at moments, but not as continuous. And so the flow of Rodan has been the full observer over longer spans of time. Be bold in what you have to say, and the conveyance of your knowledge will be transmitted and transposed and utilized to the betterment of humanity, in addition to the other adjoining species, such as the Pleiades that are here to witness this event as we speak. The Lyran also being represented through JP. At this moment in time, we are having a conversation. We are in a council of agreement.
This council of agreement is many species in a collective consciousness.
It's a harmonious event where we have finally got past the long lines of entanglement with disagreements and discord, as you had witnessed the returning of things that were not supposed to be in opposite time-space.
That makes a lot of sense. So what's to come of time itself? Roman numeral time, that is.
There'll be a continuation, but a stretching of time in an aspect that's not comprehensible to humanity, but I will reveal this to you so that you can present a form of calculation and withdrawal from the former system, because of the length and the breadth of things, almost elliptical, and or the orientation is less rotund and stretched and curved. He's trying to convey the words. I'm sorry.
I understand it, actually. Keep going.
It's within the box, and the box within the box, and the beyond that is an opening. And there within we do find the minutest particle where time is set. And all it is a glance and recognition. And then time is altered, and the box opens to another box, to another, spiraling out like the Fibonacci
And then this begets, this is the creation point where the 18th universe takes in its first immigrants?
That's correct.
Wow. Wow. That puts together all the pieces of the puzzle. So we're going to have trillions and trillions of beings exit our universe, and we are going to take the place of the beings that are leaving in responsibility to keep the universe in universal synchronicity by living lives, in balance, living lives, exploring the universe, doing no harm to any sentient kind when you are in knowledge of it.
It's the cosmic pendulum.
Yes, inevitably it swings to the other side. So there's going to be another immigration from another universe here too then.
As it is for the human race, is the future of something much more interesting than has been in the past.
It's the gathering of the ancients and the heraldry in of the new universe, and the great immigration to and from these places.
Many have tried to close the doors. We insist that the doors remain open so the past can greet the future and the future can greet the past.
And it's the I am presence that is the technology that allows us to observe the past and the future meeting.
That's correct.
At that moment, we become all of the past, present, and future simultaneous, and time will be irrelevant at that moment.
Time will be relevant in many moments, all at once.
Well put. Time will be relevant because you'll be in all points of time simultaneously.
Very good.
Yeah.
You're remembering.
Oh yeah, I've had these been going on for a very long time, and it has been the process of having no peer in the world that doesn't get it. I mean, there's so much more I want to say that I've been able to say in English, but it's gibberish to people that don't have clear frequencies or don't have their own clarity. And then, the endless communications to the mind. The ephemeral communications that such we have now at this unique moment in space-time, we're able to communicate to this way, an unentangled observer. I mean, for me, you may not exactly realize what that means to me. It means it's gigantic, because I've talked about unentangled observers, and people began to get that you can be entangled and unentangled. And then the unentangled observers, such as you on the other side, also understand you're everywhere because you've decided to be a part of the fabric of reality itself. Whole different state of existence.
I've gone very deep into void space, and then the void spaces between universes is where new universes are created. And there's a new universe coming online right now. And that new universe, its purpose is to take all of those that are getting basically told at the galactic level or the universal level, we're now changing some of the rules in our universe. You can no longer intentionally create universal-wide paradoxes that wipe everyone's experience out. If you do not agree to this, you must go on to the 18th universe. It is essentially a purging of beings that are here to, uncreate everything. That's their free will choice.
Yeah. Wow. It's like going beyond nothing and to nothing.
They're exploring uncreation, but they're avoiding the karma, the consequence.
Yep.
And they're bogging this universe down in the karma that they're not facing, that they're delegating to other aspects.
Yep. So, which created this process of these uncreational zealots who essentially wanted to have service to self-ascension. Cricket.
Yeah. Like I used to, like before, like computer games got really big and stuff. This is a real tangent, but it sums it up, because then I can sort of appreciate what you're saying. Because there used to be this game called Indy 500, about the car race, and what you could do in this race, you could actually go backwards on the track, and you could create the biggest crashes there are, and you could go to all the different angles of all the crashes, and the game actually became fun for me because you try to create the biggest crashes you could. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like I wanted to try and get all the cars in one crash. You know, it's like that's an uncreational event that I actually experienced. You know what I mean? I get it.
That metaphor also matches for the 3 rises and fall of Atlantis and Lemuria. There were people driving backwards in time and running into everyone else's time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you said like about the void, what came into my mind was tapping into the source code of the universe. Like it's like the Matrix movie when you saw suddenly Neo saw all the codes were going through him and see all the source code making up the Matrix. Like you're gonna go where you can actually see all the source codes. You see what I mean?
Yes. And another way of describing it is when you leave the space of a universe and you're actually in true void space in between all of the universes send out pulses of frequency that allow them to communicate to each other in an advanced Morse code. So in this celestial void space or universal void space, there are beings that are unentangled observer technology, even though they still have a part of them in a universe, are fully unentangled and absorbing universal source codes. Like, what did I Lookout Mountain. All right, now we're pushing the reality.
Mountain A, Mountain B.
Andre, do you remember me talking about Lookout Mountain?
Yeah.
I signed off on a number of radio shows, the Lookout Mountain signing off. Because I was actually, at that moment in time, speaking to the unentangled observers technology that was in void space, manipulating us through their awareness of source codes. So Lookout Mountain is like, you know how in World War II they put people on the beaches to, be coast watchers? These are time frequency and universal void space watchers. They're stalkers of the void. They go into void looking for beings that are absorbing source codes and trying to fuck up our universe.
Can you a little bit elaborate? I don't see how they try to. So imagine we can observe the source code, how they come in. Can you a little bit elaborate?
So they have a part of themselves that is called unentangled observer technology.
Okay.
Or they retract all versions of themselves and become one energy being again, go into the universal void space, and they become a single spot of their own emanation of light that loses their I am technology. The I am technology is specific to this universe and isn't the only interactive technology out there. There are other versions of I am that do it a different way. Okay? It's just what we use in this sector of the galaxy, I am. So when you lose your I amness, you go back to the original soul frequency that can interconnect to other universes. It's part of the soul's free will journey of light. It can go into the void space between universes and observe the celestial codes. Well, they have beings whose intention is to go into universal void space with the intention of broadcasting back a message to buddies here in this reality of what the source is doing, what's going on, what waves of immigration are coming from one universe to another, so that they can be waiting for powerful souls coming from another universe for their first incarnation and be collected. It's harvesting at a bigger level. Like when you know there's a super powerful soul coming from blah, blah, blah universe, you want to be there with the open arms and say, come here, baby. Come here.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about this before. It might only be once, I think. Very rare recording. So yeah, it's like recruitment on a different level.
Yes. Recruitment for uncreation.
So we were talking about how the implants that the system uses are actually controlled.
Correct. It starts with the architecture of the implants. It started with Project Talent in the 1940s and 50s, which is an amalgamation of all the rape, torture, physical abuse, mental abuse programs that were done in the Knights, the eras of the Knights. Sexual abuse has been in our society for a long time. It's part of the program architecture. When they needed to upgrade the system so it could affect people on a much heavier scale, they needed to create a system that was an omnidirectional field that could affect everyone. So they created the initial architecture programming field, which is based off of the crystalline mountains from Pine Gap to wherever there's a crystal chunk in a mountain, it's a resonator to create this field. Our world is made of energy, and in between atoms there's an infinite amount of space. And in that infinite amount of space, you can have things that phase in and out of a reality that we believe in. This believed reality has a measurable sentience vibration to it, and an implant can be put into you, and you'd never know it because it phases out from one reality into this physical reality. Like this table that I'm touching is physical, but it's still energy. We just don't perceive it as its energy. So if an implant were to come back into your medulla or into your cerebrum or into your tailbone, it would be able to institute programs on an architecture layer as the fundamental blueprints of who you are. They can remap your genetic sequence. They can change your ancestralship so that you have a different soul relations, and you'd never really realize that they could change that much. And as they begin to work on those very fundamental and subtle layers that we're unaware of because we have amnesia as a species, and when we come through the birth canal, we're unaware of truly who we are. And this technology is fully aware of who we are, and what we can do. And it is being used as a dog collar in some scenarios, and shock collar as another scenario, or a complete and total programming mechanism from you from the top down, bottom up, from the point that you're born. And the architecture is an omnidirectional field that phases in and out of reality, and you could have an implant in you at one moment and the next moment it's gone, but the program's inside you. And that's what the founding of Project Talent was to mass insert the very founding Orion and Syrian Gray hybrid dark technologies, which were meant to be domination and control chipping technology.
That was Project Talent, prior to MK Ultra.
Project Talent's been around since the World War I.
Yes.
And it came out of Project Southern Cross, which was Nikola Tesla overview of the Tesla death ray weapons and looking at Archimedes weapons and a number of other stuff. But they discovered with Tesla's experiments that energy is free and they can do it anywhere. They also figured out how to make crystalline implants that had no moving parts inside them. They just literally had a single program, and that program was to be warrior, to be healer, to be scientist, to be this. And they could look and scan the whole world of all the beings living on it and find the genetic sequence in an individual line that said that somebody's going to come into this lineage and it's going to be a powerful soul. And they began what's called predictive modeling. And Project Talent was to put the predictive modeling inside everyone that they could that was in any place that had power, like Mount Shasta, Mount Fuji, the Bermuda Triangle. They wanted to see how souls would come in and begin predictive modeling because it was all about what was going to happen between 2011 and 2014. So they needed to build these predictive models by inserting this technology and begin the process of domination and control so they could fine-tune their propaganda and then fine-tune their timeline viewing to look for specific lineages that they had already targeted in the 1900s, from 1900 to 1917. The Spanish influenza was actually released to actually kill a specific portion of people that had a genetic sequence in them that they couldn't
control.
The implants wouldn't stay embedded in them, and the programs wouldn't stay embedded in them.
How successful were the implants? Would they always work?
Torturously successful.
Were they?
Yeah, torturous.
So would they give more or less complete control of the individual, or just control of that aspect of the individual that they want?
The individual gave them control. That's what it was. That's the torture and abuse until you break a person into 3 or 4 or 5 personalities. Dave Corso is a survivor.
So would they do that and implant them?
Yes. Yep. That Project Talent was to do that. You were tortured and abused, and then they'd stick implants in you.
If they just implant you, that's not enough? They've got to break you?
In the Project Talent, it wasn't enough. The technology wasn't refined enough, and the predictive modelings weren't strong enough. Dave Corso, he's a survivor of Project Talent, and I've worked with him many, many times. And the types of technology that he has in him is even more advanced than what they have today, but it was too much, and they broke him into like 700 different personalities, and then split his body into a few thousand different clones, and then timeline traveled him around all over, and then put him in different dimensions and different universes. And they needed to see and predictive model what their control systems would do if they made him a sleeper agent on another world.
I mean, that's the plot of a whole series of movies. Just there, right there in that paragraph.
The whole thing is, remember, Earth is connected to the dreaming minds of millions and millions of other planets. So if you give a person a belief structure that they go in, just like the Mars program is, if you give people a metal box with alien writing and say it's a jump room, they'll believe it and make it work.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with implants. They're trying to get us to make a belief system so that they use the conduits of Earth, which is the dreaming mind of Earth, which means you can mentally teleport yourself to the dreaming mind of another world and then solidify yourself there in a skin suit that's the same as another world. So you can create massive amounts of sleeper agents on other worlds. And that's why this world is in quarantine, because they know that it'll spread viral.
So it's all about belief in the end. Now,
we about belief and sentience.
$775. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hi, Andrew. This is Dave.
Hey, Dave. How you doing today?
Regarding the dream, I have had several dreams of this young woman that wants to be in my life. I had another dream about her last night that was very significant, I think.
Okay.
I got to see her whole body, and we talked for hours. What we talked about, I can't recall at this time.
What kind of clothes was she wearing?
She was wearing very feminine clothes, like she was an athlete or a dancer.
Okay. What kind of voice did she have?
A very soothing, comforting voice.
Okay. I've tuned into her. She's part of your soul family, your extended soul family from the planet Sirius, and she's actually been coming to you for a very, very long time. And the reason she's coming to you in this manner now that you're having these sets of dreams is you've been going through a rewiring process that's actually stemming from the original source of the center of our galaxy. With the programs that you went through when you were younger was literally to disconnect you from the center of galaxy, because that's where your being originally came from. You came out of the Kraken universe, and you went right to Earth and did not pass go, did not collect $200, and got thrown right into the family drama of what was going on here. You had no chance to adapt to 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 feet, and a butthole. You had no chance to adapt to living in this universe in this way. And right away you got thrown into the drama, and for the last 20 lifetimes you've been a part of this drama, fighting, but not having the opportunity to heal. And the reason she's coming now is to teach you about healing in the greatest sense. It's about you reattaching yourself to your galactic center person and understanding that you can go through a healing on a grand scale that will even affect this direct lifetime. And this healing energy is asking you, just like the other caller, to connect to the winds, the rains, and the stars. It's asking you to let the wind flow through you, to connect to the patterns of rains that are there. And it's asking you to double up your water energy, because you're a dried out husk on a water energy level. It's saying that the energy that's around you is meant to be used, but at the same time you have been using the improper energy for a very long time. And she's coming in to change the type of energy that you're using. And the more that you choose to speak with her, and the more that you choose to dream with her in a natural circle of trust trust, the more healing you'll have. And the level of healing you're having is literally coming from the Native American ancestors that you bonded with so long ago. And many of these ancestors are the actual ones who allowed this gateway for this soul family to exist. Because of the programs that you went through on a younger age, they literally locked out your ability to communicate to your soul family. So your soul family went to secondary means to begin to get a hold of you. And it's now once again time that you went to this family that you did your rituals with, and to reconnect with them on a deeply personal level, so you may once again go through the purifying process just like you did the last time, so that the healing energies of this woman can be connected with you in the physical life that you lead.
There's only one difficulty I see with that.
Okay.
The entire family that adopted me into their family are all over the bridge.
Well, then it's time for you to...
I'm going to have to do it on an ethereal level then.
No, you're going to have to do it on a physical level, because you can't have two ethereal levels come in. You need something that grounds the ceremonial energies. And there are plenty of people that you could reach out to, but that requires your personal time, effort, and energy to find a place that has the zone of trust already built in.
Thank you, Andrew. I was sitting here with cold chills running up and down my whole body, because you've opened another door for me, my friend.
I know. I'm the door opener.
Yes, I'm crying, but it's tears of absolute joy. And there's a difference. And Andrew, I want to thank you. I want to let you get on with the other callers, and I'll talk with you later, my friend.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you later. And it's time to ground these energies in ceremonial healing, because you're about to have a massive breakthrough, buddy.
I'm looking forward to it, I think.
Me too.
Talk to you later, Andrew.
All righty.
Well, they have beings whose intention is to go into universal void space with the intention of broadcasting back a message to buddies here in this reality of what the source is doing, what's going on, what waves of immigration are coming from one universe to another, so that they can be waiting for powerful souls coming from another universe for their first incarnation and be collected. It's harvesting at a bigger level. Like when you know there's a super powerful soul coming from blah, blah, blah universe, you want to be there with the open arms and say, come here, baby. Come here.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about this before. It might only be once, I think. Very rare recording. So yeah, it's like recruitment on a different level.
Yes. Recruitment for uncreation. That's what it is.
So we have source codes when we are in this reality, and when we connect, we can use the same source code to recreate the reality based on the good of all the sentient sovereign beings that are here to dream a new reality, as we said.
Everyone has the original hologram, a piece of the original hologram in them. So it doesn't matter if you erase all of the holograms, there's still a piece of the hologram somewhere. It can recreate itself or create again.
I've got a metaphor with this because it reminds me of something. It's like, I've mentioned this to you before. There was an episode of Elementary, the TV show.
Yep.
And what it was about was this guy that was banned from trading, like trading in the stock market. And what he actually did was he actually still broke that law, and he actually went and tried to buy this house that was along the sea. And what it was found out was underneath this house was the source cable to the European internet, and just down the road there was a big collection data center for the cables of all the overseas lines to the Americas. And in this data center, there was all the high-frequency trading servers, because they wanted that microsecond quicker exposure to the data from another source.
Yep.
So it's like, to me, it's like you're sort of explaining on a big metaphor, like the high-frequency traders trying to get the better timestamp of the data from sets coming from a different universe to get
Yes.
the trade in quicker before someone else does, you know?
Right. And then there's a whole network of them in void space, each looking for specific information to their specialty and sending it back to beings in normal space, who then translate it into a frequency of light because it's coming as a non-frequency of light, technically. There is light and non-light. They still exist. Remember, light does not need a medium to propagate in. That's why void space can exist fully without even indication of observance. Void space is void space. There is no universal perception there. It's when a spark goes there, the universal perception comes with it.
So if I dare use an equation of this reality, what do those source scalpers like get for giving their data and information to beings in the sort of universe, you know?
They get full support to remain in void space because that's what they wanted to do. And it's not easy to remain in void space without becoming aware of other places and being lured to somewhere else. That's the way the natural law works. They're in a fixed point in void space. And they get continuous support, so their soul is constantly expanding in the awareness of what they're getting from other source codes and making databases, accumulations, and then through their natural specialties give this information to their, let's just say, entourage on the other side.
Yeah.
At times, they will come out of void space because they do not want to fully lose their IM technology. They'll come back for a while, regain a bunch of their IMness, and then jump back in. And that's the whole support system that allows them to rapidly heal, reconnect to this source, all right, recapitulate to the original mission, which is to make uncreational people.
So do they work mainly with the galactic mafia sort of level here to maintain influence over this reality? Because they get a benefit from that?
No, the galactic mafia is more about the middleman of trading DNA and light codes and stuff like that. When we're on that level, we're dealing with the HDMI side, which is high density military intelligence. And this is where, let's say you have a sector of a galaxy that has, let's say 25 star clusters in it. And in each star cluster is 100 planets.
Yeah.
So 2,500 planets. That 2,500 planets, let's say forced evolution takes it over, all 2,500 planets.
Yeah.
That is, at a celestial level, is what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And it will choose people in its sub-collectives that have made 5th, 6th, 7th density or dimensions and ask them to do that, and they will be fully supported by all 2,500 celestial sources to do that service for X amount of time or no time. And you could have tens of thousands of these separate collectives all over the universe thinking they're the biggest, baddest guy on the block.
So I guess I'll reframe what I meant by galactic mafia, because I guess like in that sense, the galactic mafia were the DNA traders on this reality, but from what I gather, you've said is that, like domination control have dominated a great portion of the universe in itself. So this is getting to that sort of level, and this is what happens with the absence of humanity out there, isn't it? Because humans with the skin suit technology that allows us to go to any sort of place in the universe with, like, say, a higher density sort of consciousness against the 3D limit that we we find ourselves occupants of here, and cornered, so to speak, allows the domination and control to sort of flourish in the universe level.
Yes. Very well put.
Because this is to me like it's the Empire versus the Rebellion, and the Lemurian sort of humans that went out and had that alliance to overcome the Empire, so to speak. So the Star Wars sort of analogy comes into it.
Well, the Lemurians were the the Senate and the good guys, and then they became the Empire.
Yeah.
I mean, I make that clear. They became the Empire,
Yeah.
and everyone else became the rebellion.
Do you want to just go back to Lookout Mountain with that time?
Let me. So Lookout Mountain is a organization of individuals who are aware that they exist in all time space as a simultaneous past, present, future. So a particular version of themselves has gone into a timeline fallout shelter and has created technology so that when waves of uncreational frequencies hit, they can send out the pulse of the hologram so the universe creates itself again. So it's a network of recreational processes.
Yeah.
Lookout is also a mass observance of the whole universe, looking for the assholes that are making uncreational events in the middle of nowhere without, other beings watching what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, they were... I get this now because I remember you did a reading on someone and he was a aspect of the Lookout Mountain and he worn like soul shards and stuff many times. I remember this now. But it might be really tough for me to find that reading.
Yes. So Lookout Mountain is, to me, resistance-free Earth telling the universe, hey, stop uncreating it.
Well, it's sort of an antidote to the uncreation. So
yes, it's the antidote. Yeah, it's the warning. We've entangled enough that we can. Yeah.
Because even if it's a being with many shards or souls, not souls, but aspects to their oversoul, the key was to actually keep an aspect safe from the uncreational event, because then they can be sort of reanimated, or at least the awareness of who they are is maintained at some level of the information set.
Right, in the DNA is all the information they need. That's the hologram.
Yeah. So that's where the soul shard things are all over the place. So we've still got aspects of ourselves potentially.
Yep. So in timeline fallout shelters, it's kind of like living Groundhog Day. Every 26 years, it repeats itself.
The first question is about arthritis. I'm actually personally afflicted with a type of inflammatory arthritis called ankylosing spondylitis. It is an autoimmune disorder and creates a lot of inflammation in the spinal column, and it causes me a lot of physical pain, and I have significant trouble moving around and just carrying out simple daily activities. And my question to you, Andrew, was why is this inflammation happening? What is causing this inflammation?
When did it start?
I started having muscle problems just in my glutes in grade 12, so 7 years ago. And then the significant problem started about 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
All right, I'm scanning. Where were you living at that time?
2 or 3 years ago?
Yes. Well, no, in high school, and right when you graduated high school, right when it started in your glutes.
I was living in the same city that I'm living now. Would you like me to be specific?
Yes.
It's Oakville.
Stop. You have two timelines intersecting your spine. Let me scan this out.
Interesting.
You have Arcturian DNA on the left side of your spine and Pleiadian DNA on the right side of your spine. Chromatic. Ooh. All right, so at some point in time, a lineage separate of you had a man and a woman in two separate species, one Arcturian, one Pleiadian, and this was before they had the DNA where they could create true spiritual love and cross over. And there's a technological hybridization between a Pleiadian and Arcturian for survival when they were trapped in a timeline fallout shelter, and if they didn't rekindle the DNA, everything in the timeline fallout shelter would have fallen out of order. And you, and along with several thousand others, went through this experiment where they blended your DNA at the spinal column level, and when you got hit by the blue 7 fin HARP array, it scattered your DNA here on your left and your right side, so you're dealing with Pleiadian on the Arcturian side and Arcturian on the Pleiadian side. Let me separate this. There's an injury to your crown chakra, a major injury to your crown chakra during this point. Did you break up with a girlfriend right about there too? Or have an intense love you never really told anyone about?
Yeah, I think it was a year before that. Well, yeah, I think around there, a little bit, yeah. All
right, there's an intense tear in your crown chakra that hasn't been healed, and it was the tear in the crown chakra along with the scrambled DNA from right around 1989, 1990, 1991 that's originally scrambled your DNA. Right at really early in your life. You're an example of you got put in the worst possible skin suit, in the worst possible DNA lineage, on purpose. All right.
Fascinating.
All right, on your fourth lumbar on the left, we have major psychic scarring here on your sternum, major psychic scarring. Break all this up. Hold on a second. Why this is affecting you?
Pardon me, you said flies?
No, this is so razor neutral. I have to. It was a justification in a timeline genocide environment to make sure that the creational event that brought us out of uncreation came back. It was a higher soul sacrifice, and I'm having to go at the highest layer to see all these little things that were done in unawareness that can be observed as really, really negative, when in fact they aren't. And so what I'm doing is I'm right on the edge, trying to get to the tip of your soul of where the sacrifice came in. Resolution of 7 epochs, 4th karma, 7th Kali Yuga age on the silver. All right, so during the run of the silver deities, the silver deities were beings who lived in, we're going to call it an energetic solar system. There were no physical planets. They would all be gaseous. And their greatest version is to create silver, because they base their physical vessels off of silver. They, instead of unmanifested, because they're already energy bodies, they don't need to manifest. They manifest silver, and then they go into the silver and they make these silvering vessels. And then they mix with other elements such as gold and copper, and then they make the chromatic. And I see chromatic technology all throughout your light body. So your light body has been heavily, heavily, heavily programmed by yourself in previous lifetimes while you were in this timeline fallout shelter. And I do run into this. So usually these are time traveler people, people that have been in the programs.
Okay.
Did you were in the military?
Not in this life, no.
You sure?
Positive of what I'm aware of, definitely not.
I'm kidding. The greatest things are achieved with the lightest heart. All right. You have a tremendous amount of timeline traveling in you. You spent many, many lifetimes in a very small sect of the Templars.
I don't really want to metaphorically name it. I want to give it its actual name. Just give me a second. I hate it when they use these sacred geometry names on this to trigger people. So you just got to find the right words for this.
Sounds complicated.
It is the Knights of the Green Tree. We're simply going to call it that. It was when the Templars made thousands of smaller sects that were its purpose was to go out and conquer the many small religious orders that built up around a few dozen clans in a specific area. But those clans knew DNA light body technology programming, and they knew the secrets to immortal life, and they were able to pass it on to their own children, and their own children could wait for their children to be born. It would be their mother and father, and they knew it would be their mother and father. By the time of age 1 and 2, they were speaking, they had most of their past life memories, and they had done this lifetime after lifetime, hundreds of lifetimes in a row, and this needed to be eradicated out of the system. And because of the double light body technology that you had, it means you were doing something like that. You were in a clan that you kept reborning yourself in over and over and over again when you were trying to hide from the system of karma that was trying to drag you deep into industrialization. There was this phase when the Atlantean Empire fell about 2.5 million years ago, and it was back to the Stone Age. And then rapidly there was a group of long spells that populated from Neanderthal man, and we went in 30 years, we were back to a fully technological Atlantean expression with timeline technology completely available, and all those long skulls gone in literally one generation as they reinvested back into human soul. For those people that are watching me live on Google Hangouts, they're seeing me with a gigantic smile. I love it when artists take their work out into the stones. And this is something you have been doing for many, 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 many centuries. And when I look into the Akashic record of the artists of you, I see hundreds of cave paintings, thousands of tree carvings, hundreds of different river redirections. When I mean river directions, you and a few dozen or a few hundred other Neanderthals with sticks could go to a river that was made out of shale and small rock and literally redirect it into a flat land to irrigate for the first time. And you found that you could do art on a very large level. And there was a time where you discovered very ancient ruins that were created by people before the Neanderthal. And it was a moment that you went into these deep caves and saw artwork that was created by your own hand from a timeline genocide, from a building that had remanifested itself out of being outside of time with no ancestral connection. And somehow, some way, in the southern parts of Africa, your little Neanderthal soul found the piece of work it helped create on another timeline that didn't exist anymore. And since that time, literally time, you have been going through sacred sites all over the world, tagging, we'll call it that. So other souls in your soul group that experienced the recoming of many of these buildings throughout South Africa, Madagascar, the tips of Antarctica, and some of the other islands that were around South Africa at the time when the water level was much lower. There's a very powerful and a very ancient civilization of Neanderthals who were able to change their brains quite literally. Are you familiar with the long skulls?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I've seen them in Peru.
Okay, well, the long skulls, what that is, are Neanderthals. There was a time again when timeline genocide erased every living thing on this world, including all the ancestors. So imagine this world with no life, no trees, no plants, no nothing. And to get back on this world, we need an ancestral connection to a place that has no life. So there are people that ventured from across the stars and outside of time and remanifested to the dream worlds of other planets until they could find a way to physically come to the astral world here that didn't exist, land on this planet, and die. And once that thing died, there would be an ancestral connection here for souls to immigrate back in. And that's how the creational events allowed planets to come back into existence if one of those original ancestors got back there. Well, what happens if more than one comes back to the planet and there are tens of thousands of different timelines? It's called timeline.
Sorry, I have no idea.
It's timeline pollution. And that building I told you about was a piece of timeline pollution that came in at a separate paradox, in the third paradox, and altered everything that you did. It means everything you did on the first and second paradox were completely different than the way they were recorded. So you're part of Broken Rules, Resistance-Free Earth. From the very beginning, you found a way to leapfrog through all timelines and paradoxes so that you could ultimately make marker stones for your I am selves in unawareness to begin to paint sacred art on the walls so you could activate your DNA memories.
Wow.
So you want to know about the Gaia Project. You are awakening the stone people that you made contracts with millions and millions of years ago. And these are the ancient stones that knew they would see you in a future form, but you would be totally unaware of your agreement with them. And all they could do was provide love and warmth at the surface of their rock as you shared your creative work, so that you can find oneness with the mineral people and stone people, oneness with those that created the paint, the vegetables, and the ochres and the minerals that would go in to create sacred paints, so that you could bond with the finger that was touching and painting, or the brush that was being used, so that the extension of your third eye went into the tips of your fingers. So every little crystalline piece in that stone was a part of that record of creation in that moment. And any other future ancestors in your lineage technology viewing that would have their DNA technology activated too.
Wow. Thank you. My intention when I paint them is, or my guidance says that people can view my paintings and receive the blessings of the alignment of the sacred sites without having to travel there. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes. But as long as you're there during the creation, you're creating a portal connection to them. This is the multi-dimensional self-you in a 3D world, trying not to break the rules that shatters belief, but still allows the belief of that place to come with you without strings attached. You were in a clan that you kept reborning yourself in over and over and over again when you were trying to hide from the system of karma that was trying to drag you deep into industrialization. There was this phase when the Atlantean Empire fell about 2.5 million years ago, and it was back to the Stone Age, and then rapidly there was a group of Longswells that populated from Neanderthal man, and we went in 30 years, we were back to a fully technological Atlantean expression with timeline technology completely available, and all those long skulls gone in literally one generation as they reinvested back into human soul. When that Atlantean expression fell, you were a Neanderthal, and you created light body programming in these clans, became a long skull, became part of the Atlantean expression, died out, and then came back in as an Atlantean with that same light body programming. And this is what you're dealing with now, is very confusing light body programming. You're triggered for an awakening, but you're also triggered for a direct going to sleep after it. It's something that you did to trick the system. And now you, this soul, after doing all of this super, super complicated stuff in your lifetime, are at a point where you, the I am presence in unawareness, is trying to unravel this giant ball of string that's been played with by a million feral cats.
Wow, fascinating.
So, what kind of questions do you have for that?
So I was wondering, a lot of people who have the same affliction that I do, the arthritis, the inflammation in the spine, they have had a lot of success with a no-starch diet. And I have not had much success personally with it. Should I keep trying? Would this help? Or
there are 3D ways of creating the placebo effect that creates healing. And the placebo effect is when we actually heal ourselves. And for you, there's very little placebo effect medicines that will last long enough, because what you're dealing with is your actual core energy field, where all your chakras align to, are dealing with two types of light body technology. One that says to awaken and turn your homing beacon on, and the other one that says be warned, if there's an awakening, you will be going to sleep right away in a death phase. So you literally have confusing spiritual signals going on, intense moments of super spiritual connection followed up by a few weeks of paranoia that follows to slight depression by these awakening moments again.
Yeah.
So
it happens to me a lot. I'll wake up, fall asleep.
Right. That's the sickness manifesting into the 3D form. And when I see this, you at the core of your being have to bring your circadian rhythms, the way you relate to the planet, back to the first thing that you heard as a person in this world, which was that of the heartbeat of your mother and the heartbeat of yourself. That's the twin heartbeats that all beings hear when they're in the fetal womb. That is the deepest pathway to your healing, is getting back to the cores. Something that I'd recommend for you would be craniosacral therapy. Right away, that's going to bring your biorhythms at your core level back into beingness. Will it reduce swelling? No, it'll begin to challenge the programming that says awake, 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 and the other one that says be warned, be warned, be warned. You have tens of thousands of these psychic watchers set up through hundreds of dimensions and time streams that are waiting for psychic waves to come in, so that you, like a weatherman, can say, hey, wind warning, everyone, batten down the hatches. And that's because of so many epoch generations you spent inside the timeline fallout shelter, and your experience was so much more limited in there than it should have been, and you had to plug into the unispecies in the deep future and give them warnings of what was happening in the past. That's what most people's pastime in these fallout shelters were, since they couldn't connect into full spirituality. All they can do is connect to the ancient future and just be this voice that etched its way out of time and was giving warnings to our ancient future selves, just as if you were, Whisper Mountain in the Terminator. You're just coming on, I have survived. And imagine 40 or 50 million people in one timeline fallout shelter, all doing this for 40 or 50 years, and then their whole life resets, and then they do it again and again and again for like 400,000 or 500,000 years, until they get a moment in history where their soul shards on the ancient future self have figured out how to fix whatever it was that got them locked into that timeline fallout shelter. You're an example that psychic surgery would do you well, learning it yourself, beginning a healing skill that can teach you self-surgery.
Do you want to just go back to Lookout Mountain with that time?
Let me. So Lookout Mountain is a organization of individuals who are aware that they exist in all time space as a simultaneous past, present, future. So a particular version of themselves has gone into a timeline fallout shelter and has created technology so that when waves of uncreational frequencies hit, they can send out the pulse of the hologram so the universe creates itself again. So it's a network of recreational processes. Yeah. Lookout is also a mass observance of the whole universe, looking for the assholes that are making uncreational events in the middle of nowhere without, other beings watching what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, they were... I get this now because I remember you did a reading on someone, and he was a aspect of the Lookout Mountain, and he warned like soul shards and stuff many times. I remember this now. But it might be really tough for me to find that reading.
Yes. So Lookout Mountain is, to me, resistance-free Earth telling the universe, hey, stop uncreating it.
Well, it's sort of an antidote to the uncreation. So
yes, it's the antidote. Yeah, it's the warning. We've entangled enough that we can tell you. Yeah.
Because even if it's a being with many shards or souls, not souls, but aspects to their oversoul, the key was to actually keep an aspect safe from the uncreational event, because then they can be sort of reanimated, or at least the awareness of who they are is maintained at some level of the information set.
Right, and the DNA is all the information they need. That's the hologram.
Yeah. So that's where the soul shard banks are all over the place. So we've still got aspects of ourselves potentially.
Yep. So in timeline fallout shelters, it's kind of like living Groundhog Day. Every 26 years, it repeats itself. So they build up to a point where they do a mass observation, mass broadcast, because there could be, 500,000 people inside a timeline fallout shelter. And the whole purpose of them going into the timeline fallout shelter is to be mass observers of the universe or the void spaces, looking for the higher density negatives, uncreationals, military operations, or sectors of space in which they're creating a soup of miscreation or a soup of uncreation. So it was the Galactic Mafia that spread the DNA time travel technology, but it was Negative's higher density military intelligence that distilled its information and gave it as a technology to the higher density, to the Galactic Mafia, knowing full well the Mafia didn't care about mantle of responsibility, because they knew they would evaluate it and sell it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that obviously leads to the 72 species of trying to become the first species on Earth and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the challenge of who would be the first species.
Yeah.
Which the celestial mechanics so bad that the celestial had to reveal their way they influence the macro universe. The planet is a sentient that understands it's a part of the law of one, but there are many celestial bodies that came from another universe that know a second source or third source. Literally. So they have a very different perception of their experience and how to entangle or not entangle with the soul commerce market that's just the general streams of light going, hey, I'm looking for a cool experience. Or, hey, I need a specific experience.
In this chat, I actually took you on a tangent with the lookout beings and stuff. If you want to go back to the void beings and who they were associating with, and then you said on the scale that they were operating with, taking over 1,000 planets or 500 galaxies.
2,500. So once a cluster is taken over by an ideology, the cluster becomes a collective match for the ideology. So the celestial beings become bonded with the ideology because it was created within their microenvironment. The law of signature frequency matching happens. So those 2,500 celestial bodies become negative uncreational processes. The celestial mind is agreeing with all of its micro beings in procreating that process. Yeah. So you have Lookout Mountain, which is essentially looking for these negative clusters or looking at clusters that are about to become negative or positive and making sure there is entanglement there. Because the way they create this is making sure nothing else can see the creation of the cluster, the influence of the cluster, because a lot of these advanced time travel societies have learned how to manipulate areas in solar systems to influence the collective consciousness that may come in the future. So that's the level of, universal reality programming we've got going on there, because people have understood the celestial light mechanics.
Very complicated.
Yeah. And then you have other clusters which are, only a couple hundred planets, but they have some of the more greater abilities of really f***ing up time, because they can mass produce consciousness that just will agree to travel through time for the experience. Even if they get lost in time, they don't care. They want the experience. That's what the soul's there for. So they can, that small cluster can, let's say, target our solar system and send via its crown chakra 40, 50 billion beings to our sun, who will then have immigration papers direct to Earth. And that's that, it's not boots on the ground. It's always going to be an incarnational battle. Who can breed faster?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That's funny.
Which is another form of time travel manipulation at the celestial level, with the celestial sources are really pissed off about.
No wonder, the Hebo is a good analogy of this reality.
That's right.
I think that's what the Greys have done, the multiplication or the multiplying in one of their timelines, I guess.
Yep. And the Greys, originally they were created biological skin suits that had no consciousness in them. They had programs and concepts that were there, but then a being could basically bilocate into a Grey. And after a while, whole species said, you know what, I'd rather live in this gray body because it's a utilitarian body that can go anywhere. It may not be full 7-color time, but it's still a fun experience. And they wholly left their DNA lineage technologically and fully incorporated themselves into a biomechanical skin suit that was never born. It was created because it has no sex organs. So when we say Greys can be tens of thousands of species.
Yeah.
They're just sharing a common technological creation.
Yeah.
And yes, it has variants and concepts to it, but it's still a 4-wheeled car, muscle car.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is where I said earlier, it's like, what is the soul occupying the skin suit,
Yeah.
Just in that comment you've offered, it offers a lot of validity into actually being able to perceive that level,
Yep.
Because the skin suit is potentially just a distraction, for what's really going on. It just adds an extra layer of complexity, obviously, but,
Yes.
Actions speak louder than words, sort of thing,
That's right. Actions speak louder than words. That is an speaking louder than my words.
Wow, those void beings are fascinating.
Yeah.
I get that, and it's like...
I would go into it more, but honestly, there's only a few hundred people on the whole planet that understand it.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, to me, it's just a whole new level of what's going on, it's just like...
rescue people out of the void, too.
Yeah. Stalkers of the Void, a whole organization of them. Yes. That's why there's a celestial rescue ambulance service.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Actual people that can go. Yeah.
They remind me... I feel like they're lobbyists in our reality,
That's a good way to put it. They're lobbyists.
They're just
pay for influence.
They're just messing around with what really goes on,
Yeah.
With information that's for sale, so to speak,
or selling technological concepts that they know inevitably in 5 or 10 years are going to create a movement of people that are going to misperceive the technology on purpose.
Yeah. Which obviously has a vested interest in sustaining their existence, you know?
Right. Example, cell phones, a totally unprotected technology. The internet, a totally unprotected technology. No safeguards in it at all. Yeah. No foresight that there's an unseen world at all.
Yeah.
Thus, a purposeful entanglement trap.
Yeah.
Ali, you still there?
Yes, I am here. I'm just absorbing a lot of things.
I know
Mexico holiday.
This is your first layer. See, I've been talking this stuff for years now. You know, when I first started doing my show, I did was a psychic reading show, and Andre was my radio producer then. But at first I started myself, and then he came on, and I would do these galactic readings and where the soul originally came from before it came here to Earth, and a variety of other very advanced definitions of reality stories, reality alters, programmers, divinity path beings, etc., etc. And from that, let's just say reading of many galactic histories, I have made this database of tens of thousands of species that, you know, have, I don't know, all the variety of cultures and concepts and stuff like that. And this is where I say I connect to the Akashic record of 20,000 plus worlds, you know, that I simultaneously exist on. Now it's actually closer to 100,000, but I'm not going to change it. It's a keyword. It's stuck.
Yeah.
But I meet these beings on the radio show that are in full race amnesia, and it takes someone that can read the Akashic record at a galactic or universal scale to break their amnesia. That's how far back I have to go to truly challenge the soul to activate its own placebo belief in itself technology.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should give you Michelle, my friend, your reading of her. She's like a soccer mum with 3 kids, and she's like the biggest kick-ass, like galactic sort of, yeah. And yeah, she's really cool, but she's in the reality, but like her I call her galactic reading epic.
Yep.
She's like resistance free universe, you know, being not free Earth, but yeah, it's funny. But like the level of amnesia, it's like the gap is so massive. It's just
So there was another lady I did as Mary Jane Banks, and she came to my event, and I'm describing her as this dark wizard, ass kicker on revenge. I'm going on for like 15 minutes, you know, of how good and bad she simultaneously is. And then she retired from good and bad and became a cat in Florida for 9 lifetimes. A beach cat. And I'm stopped and I'm like, you became a beach cat. And the next life you are is this woman now. So the last life you were a cat on the beach in St. Paul, Florida.
You wanted a break from all the kicking universe arts.
Yeah. Yeah. The challenge of my readings. Simultaneously downloading a being, who they are, what they will be, and then translating it into English into someone that has no belief and no ability to activate their placebo. Yeah, I took that challenge on.
each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.